Alright, so I played a 3-6 session that turned out to be really cool and had some pretty fun hands. It would have been a little bit more beneficial to have them go in order, but in and of themselves they're pretty interesting, and I can definitely give you adequate reads to go along with them. So, for that reason, I am just going to do this video in the hand history read player. I will tell you everything that I know about the guy, when I played against him, and reasons for playing it. I'm also thinking about doing, maybe after I grind some, if I grind some like 5, 10, 6 max and get a decent sample size, I'm also thinking about doing a video where basically I have the same situation come up over and over, like a 3-bet pot in a certain situation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that soon too. So that may be at the end of this month, I'm not sure, but hopefully pretty soon. Okay. Excuse me. So to start off with the hand, my general aggression in these games has been unbelievably high. I've just been 3-betting the fuck out of people and making them sort of make an adjustment to me. Yeah, so in this situation I 3-bet ace-4 off. I think it's a good hand to 3-bet. I have an over to a lot of his cards that'll call. I have decent equity if I decide that he's 4-bet bluffing me. I need to 5-bet all in, although obviously I'm not thrilled about it. It's just the type of hand where I'm okay playing it in position, you know, by flatting, and I'm also okay 3-betting it. It plays good as part of your bluff range, let me just say that. It's a pretty reasonable bluff range hand. So he calls and I get a pretty fucking good flop, ace-10-3 rainbow. Not only do I get a pretty good flop, but I think this is a flop that he won't believe me on. So I elect to continuation bet the flop, and the reason I continuation bet the flop is I don't think he'll check raise me thinly for value on this board. If he check raises me, I assume he's got ace-jack or ace-10 or pure air, leaning towards pure air. I also think he has a lot of tens of his range and a lot of face card hands in his range, so I would not be surprised to see him check call the flop with queen-jack. Regardless of what the turn is, I can usually just go check on the turn and pick off a river bluff. If I go bet on this board, it'll look pretty unbelievable, I think. And also, even if I bet the first two, it may look like I'm just barreling, etc. So there's just a lot of options from betting the flop. Basically, I think that this hand is strong enough to be part of my value range, primarily because of how lightly I am bluffing here, or how often people suspect that I'm bluffing here, and also how often they suspect that I'm c-betting light. So he check raises me, and this is something that I wanted to happen. I'm not super thrilled about it, but it is what it is. And so while I'm not like super thrilled about it, it's kind of hard to explain situations like this. It's basically a situation where, yes, I got the desired result, but there is some chance that I'm in real bad shape, if that makes any sense. But anyways, I call because I think it's the best play. I think it'd be too thin to click it back and get it on the flop. On the turn, my equity improves against his bluffs, etc., etc. Turn is a great card for me, brings a flush draw, and he checks. So at this point in time, I don't quite think that your standard 3-6 player is very often going to be. I don't quite think your standard 3-6 player is very often going to I guess sort of, it'd be a pretty advanced line for him to check raise the flop for value, maybe lightly, maybe something with ace-jack or something, maybe something like ace-jack or something, and then know that I'm floating the check raise a lot or whatever, and then check the turn to me. That'd be a relatively advanced thing to do. So I don't think he necessarily has anything. And so now it's like, well, if he turned a flush draw, he's just going to check jam on me. So I'm just going to bet for protection. I only bet 90. I think that betting 90 maximizes his random. He may just have to check raise me again to 200 and just totally not believe me. I think that's an extremely plausible result. He doesn't, though. He just folds. But I think that I basically think on the turn I have to bet for protection. I mean, that's not even to mention the fact that I don't think he check raises me very much at all to begin with on the turn. But when he does, I picked up obviously a gut shot with ace-4 on, and I mean I just have the blade basically in a blind versus blind battle and a 3-bet pot in position. I have a really good part of my range, and he folds. So this next hand is sort of interesting. If you missed pre-flop, under the gun opens. At the time, I had only a little bit of information on him that said that I thought that he was probably a little bit loose. So, for that reason, I decided to squeeze. Now, him being loose is important because he's able to open wide under the gun. It's not that good for my squeeze, but people tend to... It's basically like this. I was trying to say this previously when I was talking about making this video. In 2006, nobody squoze. In 2007, people started to squeeze but didn't want to talk about it. Nobody squeezed or 4-bet light or was aggressive preflop at all. By 2008, everybody was doing it way too fucking much. Way too much. To the point where you could get in really, really light hands for value. In 2009, people started doing it with a little bit better frequencies, and I think in 2010, I think nowadays people don't squeeze quite enough in spots where people's flatting ranges are wide, etc., etc. So the progression is gonna be such that every few years, you know, it's a leveling game. To some point, there is game theory, and everybody is going to sort of you know, flow or merge or whatever towards, you know, the game theory optimal way to play the hand. But at the same time, a lot of people just don't have that down or are still able to grind a lot and make a lot of money. So there's a pretty fucking good chance that you know, that leveling is going to be just insanely important. So for that reason, I squeeze. Now I get flatted by under the gun, cutoff folds, button calls. All right. So here's what I'm thinking. First of all, Queen 7 off, you know, just to reiterate, because I've mentioned this before, but, you know, it's a reasonable hand to do it with, to squeeze with. I have at least one blocker, to a lot of hands they'll flat or 4-bet me with, etc., etc. I got an over to some of the hands they'll flat me with. It's just kind of whatever. Alright, so Lakers lover calls, and enjoying Byung also calls. Byun is a full tilt pro, actually. He's a full tilt pro. Lakers lover is just a random. Well, he's a random, but I suspect, based upon his name and things, that he is not a total random. I think that there's a pretty good chance that he is, you know, a regular and whatnot. I just don't really know the 3-6 games on full tilt that well at the moment. So, once I flop a pair, the strength of my hand shouldn't dictate what I'm going to do necessarily. Basically, what I mean by that is, I'm basically sort of still in check fold mode. I think that any hand, I think a set of 10s is extremely likely for either of them. I think ace queen and king queen is extremely likely for either of them. Set of 5s is semi-plausible. Bottom line is, if I bet and get it in on this board with no flush draw, I am going to be either way behind, or a little bit behind, or possibly slightly ahead if one of them just jams king jack. I'm not going to be in good fucking shape, though. It's going to be real bad news bears for me. I'm not even in that good a shape if one of them just totally randomly has ace king and shoves it on me. I'm just not even in that good a shape against anything. So I decided I'm going to check fold. There's a chance I'm not straight check folding. There's a chance I'm like check deciding, but I basically just decided that betting does nothing. They fold all worse hands. Betting just makes no sense. Betting just doesn't accomplish anything I need to accomplish. Whenever you make a bet, you should primarily have something that it can accomplish. I know that, you know, back in the day I had some comments about, I had a very famous merging your range thread and talked about that. It's basically, you know, very important to value bet thin, certainly, but on earlier streets there's almost no reason to merge your range. You should always have something in mind on what you want to do on future streets. You should always have something in mind. The reason you're betting is for value. The reason you're betting is for protection. The reason you're betting is to get him to fold a better hand, and that would be bluffing. I mean, basically, you should always just have some sort of a reason when you're going to bet. I elected to check. Lakers lover checked, and so did Byung Yun, or whatever his name is. Enjoy Byung Young, whatever. Seems like the guy that used to throw sidearm for the Diamondbacks back in the day. I'm not sure. Anyways, the turn is a 10, which is a good card for me. It's a good card for me for a few reasons. One is that it lessens the likelihood that either of them makes quads, because who the fuck makes quads? Though I thought both of them could have quads, there's not too many random 10x hands in their range. Maybe Jack 10 suited or something like that they decided to hood flat me with, or they were getting pot odds or whatever. But there's not a lot of 10s in their range. So I feel like it moves me ahead. I would be okay with betting 145 here. I would be okay with betting, basically with the intention of bet folding, probably, but just with the intention of betting and then deciding when they played back at me what to do based on the premise that they're going to extremely rarely raise me. I didn't bet though. I decided to check. Lakers lever checked and Byung Kim checked. So at this point in time, I am pretty happy with the strength of my hand. And to be honest, with the way that they checked, I kind of thought they just didn't have anything. I mean, I kind of just thought I was ahead an extremely high percentage of the time. The river is an offsuit 2, and at this point in time, I basically just decided that I'm ahead of jacks and nines, and I almost always have the best hand based on the fact that no bets had gone in. But in order for me to maximize, if I'm going to bet, then I need to justify that I'm betting as a bluffer for value. Since I can never get them to ever fold a better hand than mine, I need to bet for value. Since I'm betting for value, I need them to call me. Since I need them to call me, I need to bet an amount that they will call me with. And in this case, I decided it was 115. Again, I'm trying to get called by 8s, 9s, and jacks specifically. They both fold, nice scoop. Yeah, I thought that was a relatively interesting hand, though, and something I think is merits going through.